Have you ever noticed that the more you try to stay calm, the more your mind pushes back, as if peace moves further away the harder you reach for it, leaving you quietly tired and mentally restless? In this audiobook, we will explore why calm disappears under pressure, how emotional overload slowly shapes your inner world, and how true steadiness can be rebuilt gently without forcing silence or pretending everything is fine. Chapter 1. When calm slips away. Calm does not disappear suddenly. It fades as small stresses collect day after day, expectations grow heavier, and the mind learns to stay alert even when there is no real danger anymore. You may notice your breathing becoming shallow, your patience thinning, and simple situations feeling heavier, not because something is wrong with you, but because your nervous system has been stretched for too long. Losing calm is not a personal weakness. It is often a natural response to living in constant mental tension without enough recovery. Many people believe calm is a personality trait that some are born with and others are not. Yet calm is actually a condition shaped by safety, rest, and clarity inside the mind. When your thoughts race ahead, replaying the past or worrying about the future, your brain stays in survival mode, making calm feel unreachable no matter how much you want it. The mind does not relax just because you demand it to. It relaxes when it senses that it no longer needs to protect you. You might try to stay busy, distract yourself, or push through with motivation. But these habits often add pressure instead of relief, quietly teaching your mind that rest must be earned. Over time, doing nothing feels uncomfortable, silence feels unsafe, and calm feels unfamiliar, like a place you once knew but cannot return to easily. Seeing this pattern is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to explain why calm feels distant even when life looks manageable from the outside. When calm slips away, the body often speaks before the mind does, through tight shoulders, restless sleep, or a constant sense of being on edge without a clear reason. These signals are not random. They are messages telling you that your inner system has been running without pause and without true recovery. Ignoring these signs does not make them disappear. It only teaches the mind to express distress more strongly later on. Understanding why calm fades is the first step toward restoring it, because you cannot rebuild something if you believe it was never meant for you. Calm is not the absence of problems. It is the ability to remain present without being consumed by them, even when life feels demanding. As this chapter unfolds, you will begin to see calm not as a distant idea, but as a state your mind can slowly return to without force or self-judgment. When the mind stays tense for too long, it slowly forgets what calm actually feels like, and stress begins to feel normal even when it is quietly draining your energy every single day. This is why moments of rest can feel uncomfortable, because your system has adapted to constant alertness and now interprets stillness as something unfamiliar. Calm does not feel safe when the mind has learned that being on guard is the only way to survive emotional pressure. You may notice that even during peaceful moments, your thoughts search for problems, replay unfinished conversations, or imagine future scenarios that have not happened yet. This is not because you enjoy worry. It is because the mind believes that constant thinking equals protection and control. Over time, this habit turns into background noise that never fully stops, making calm feel unreachable even in quiet environments. Another reason calm slips away is emotional accumulation, where feelings are delayed, ignored, or pushed aside instead of being processed naturally. When emotions are not given space, they do not disappear. They wait patiently beneath the surface and resurface as irritation, anxiety, or mental fatigue. Calm cannot exist when unacknowledged emotions continue asking for attention in indirect ways. Many people try to manage this by becoming stronger, more disciplined, or more productive, believing that control will bring peace. While control may create short-term stability, it often tightens the inner world instead of softening it, keeping the mind rigid and alert. Calm requires flexibility, not constant self-command, and this difference is often misunderstood. The body also plays a silent role in the loss of calm, especially when rest becomes shallow and recovery incomplete. Poor sleep, irregular breathing, and long periods of mental focus signal the nervous system to stay activated even when the day is over. Without physical signals of safety, the mind struggles to let go, no matter how much you want it to relax. It is important to understand that calm is not restored by removing every stressor from life, because stress itself is not the real problem. The problem is staying in stress mode without release, without pause, and without moments of genuine mental safety. Calm begins to return when the system learns that it is allowed to soften again. This chapter is not asking you to fix yourself or change who you are. It is inviting you to notice the patterns that quietly keep calm away. Awareness creates space, and space allows the nervous system to breathe without pressure. As you continue listening, you will begin to recognize that calm is not lost forever. It has simply been waiting for the right conditions to return. Chapter 2. The Weight of Constant Thinking. Constant thinking does not begin as a problem. It often starts as a coping skill, where the mind learns to stay active in order to feel prepared, responsible, and in control. Over time, this habit grows heavier, turning into mental noise that follows you into quiet moments, rest, and even sleep. What once felt useful slowly becomes exhausting, making calm feel distant and unfamiliar. You may notice that your mind rarely stays in the present, instead moving between what already happened and what might happen next. This endless movement keeps the nervous system alert, because the brain cannot tell the difference between real danger and imagined scenarios. Calm struggles to exist when the mind believes it must constantly predict, solve, and prevent. Many people confuse constant thinking with intelligence or awareness, believing that stopping would mean becoming careless or weak. In reality, overthinking is often a sign of an overstimulated mind trying to protect itself from uncertainty. Calm does not come from knowing everything. It comes from trusting that you can handle what arises without constant mental rehearsal. The pressure to think does not only come from within, it is reinforced by a world that rewards speed, productivity, and instant response. Messages, responsibilities, and expectations create a rhythm where pausing feels risky or irresponsible. Slowly, the mind adapts to this pace and forgets how to slow down without guilt. When thinking never rests, emotions also struggle to settle because feelings need stillness to be fully processed. Instead of being felt and released, emotions get analyzed, judged, or pushed aside, adding another layer of tension. Calm requires emotional space, not emotional management. You might try to quiet your thoughts by forcing silence, distracting yourself, or criticizing your own mind for being too busy. These strategies often backfire, creating resistance rather than relief and teaching the mind that thinking is dangerous. Calm grows through allowance, not suppression. Understanding constant thinking as a learned pattern rather than a flaw changes how you relate to your inner world. When the mind feels seen instead of fought, it slowly loosens its grip. This chapter invites you to notice your thoughts gently, without trying to stop them, because calm begins not when thinking ends, but when the struggle with thinking does. When the mind is overloaded with thoughts, it rarely feels like chaos at first. It often feels like responsibility, awareness, and preparation happening all at once. You may tell yourself that thinking more will help you avoid mistakes, emotional pain, or future regret. even though it quietly drains your energy. Calm fades not because you think too much, but because thinking never gets a chance to rest. There is a subtle fear beneath constant thinking, the fear that if you stop monitoring everything, something important will be missed or something will go wrong. This fear keeps the mind active even during moments meant for recovery, such as rest, solitude, or simple enjoyment. Calm cannot settle where vigilance is mistaken for safety. Over time, the body begins to mirror the mind's activity, holding tension in the jaw, neck, and chest, as if preparing for impact that never arrives. Even when you sit still, your system remains internally braced, waiting for the next demand or concern. This is why calm can feel physically impossible, not just mentally distant. Many people attempt to escape this state by filling every quiet space with noise, scrolling, conversations, or constant stimulation. Silence feels uncomfortable because it gives the mind space to reveal how tired it really is. Calm requires you to stay with that discomfort long enough for the system to realize it is safe. It is important to understand that the goal is not to stop thinking, but to change your relationship with thought. Thoughts are not instructions or warnings by default. They are mental events that come and go. Calm grows when you allow thoughts to pass without chasing or arguing with them. This shift takes patience because a mind trained to control does not soften overnight. Small moments of noticing, pausing, and returning to the present slowly retrain the nervous system. Calm is rebuilt not through force, but through repeated experiences of letting go without consequence. As this chapter closes, remember that constant thinking is not your enemy. It is a sign of a mind that learned to survive by staying active. When that mind learns it no longer has to carry everything alone, calm begins to return naturally. You do not need to silence your thoughts. You only need to stop believing that every thought requires your attention. Chapter 3. Emotional overload and inner pressure. Emotional overload often builds quietly, not through one intense event, but through many small moments where feelings are postponed, ignored, or minimized just to keep life moving forward. You may tell yourself that you will deal with emotions later, once things slow down or feel more stable, but later rarely arrives when life keeps demanding energy and attention. Calm struggles to exist when emotions are repeatedly delayed without space to breathe. When emotions are not acknowledged, they do not disappear. They compress and settle deeper, creating inner pressure that slowly affects your mood, patience, and emotional balance. This pressure may show up as irritation over small things, sudden sadness, or a constant heaviness with no clear cause. Calm feels impossible, not because emotions are too strong, but because they have been carried quietly for too long. Many people learn early that expressing emotions is inconvenient, unsafe, or a sign of weakness, so they adapt by becoming emotionally efficient instead of emotionally honest. This adaptation may help you function, but over time it disconnects you from your inner signals. Calm requires emotional presence, not emotional suppression or constant self-control. You might notice that even when everything seems fine on the surface, your body feels tense or uneasy, as if something unresolved is waiting inside. This is emotional energy seeking acknowledgement, not judgment or fixing. Calm cannot settle while emotions are quietly asking to be felt. Trying to stay positive or logical during emotional overload often adds another layer of pressure, making you feel like you are failing at coping. Emotions are not problems to solve. They are experiences that need movement and release. Calm emerges when emotions are allowed to pass naturally, without resistance. Avoiding emotions may feel safer in the short term, but it keeps the nervous system alert because unfinished emotional experiences keep the mind on guard. This constant inner vigilance drains energy and keeps calm just out of reach. Allowing emotions does not increase pain. It often reduces the weight you have been carrying. Creating space for emotions does not mean being overwhelmed or losing control. It means listening without urgency or fear. Even small moments of honesty with yourself can release more tension than hours of distraction. Calm begins to return when emotions feel welcomed rather than managed. When emotional pressure remains unexpressed, the mind often tries to compensate by staying busy, controlled, or emotionally distant, believing this will prevent further discomfort from surfacing. This strategy may help you function on the surface, but inside it slowly creates numbness that disconnects you from yourself rather than protecting you. Calm cannot grow in a space where emotions are treated as threats instead of meaningful signals. You may notice that you begin reacting more strongly to small situations, not because they truly matter, but because they touch emotions that have been waiting underneath for a long time. Emotional overload lowers your tolerance, making patience fragile and reactions sharper than you expect them to be. Calm feels impossible in these moments because your inner system is already carrying more than it can hold. Another common sign of emotional pressure is constant self-judgment, where you criticize yourself for feeling too much, feeling too little, or not coping the way you believe you should. This inner criticism adds weight to emotions that are already heavy, increasing tension instead of releasing it. Calm requires kindness toward what you feel, not punishment for experiencing it. Many people fear that if they slow down emotionally, everything they have been holding back will spill out all at once and become unmanageable. In reality, emotions release in layers, gently and gradually, when they are allowed without fear or resistance. Calm does not disappear when emotions surface. It often begins right after they are acknowledged. Learning to sit with emotions does not mean analyzing them endlessly or trying to label them perfectly with words. It means allowing sensations, thoughts, and feelings to exist without urgency, judgment, or the need to change them immediately. Calm grows when the mind realizes that emotions can pass through without causing damage. As emotional pressure softens, you may notice subtle shifts, such as deeper breathing, a quieter inner voice, or moments of ease returning without effort. These changes are signs that your nervous system is beginning to trust safety again. Calm often returns quietly, without announcement, when the inner load becomes lighter. This chapter gently reminds you that emotional overload is not something to conquer, fix, or overcome through force and control. It is something to listen to with patience, honesty, and respect. As you allow emotions to move instead of holding them tightly, calm will slowly find the space it needs to settle within you again. Chapter 4: The Body That Never Feels Safe. Calm is not only a mental experience, it is deeply connected to how safe the body feels in each moment, even when there is no obvious external threat present. Many people try to calm their thoughts without realizing that their body is still holding tension, alertness, and readiness, as if something bad is about to happen. When the body does not feel safe, the mind cannot truly rest. You may notice tightness in your shoulders, jaw, or stomach, even during moments that should feel relaxed and uneventful. This tension is not random. It is the body remembering stress and staying prepared because it has learned that relaxation is often interrupted. Calm feels impossible when the body has learned that letting go leads to disappointment or danger. The nervous system does not respond to logic, reassurance, or motivation. It responds to experience and pattern. If your body has lived through long periods of pressure, unpredictability, or emotional strain, it stays alert by default. Calm begins to return only when the body experiences repeated moments of safety without consequence. Many people unknowingly push their bodies beyond limits through constant sitting, shallow breathing, poor sleep, or ignoring physical discomfort. These habits send silent signals to the nervous system that rest is not allowed or not important. Calm cannot settle in a body that feels unheard or neglected. You might try to relax by forcing your body to be still, but forced stillness can increase tension when safety has not been established. The body needs permission to soften, not commands to behave differently. Calm grows when the body feels supported, not controlled. Small physical cues can make a powerful difference, such as slower breathing, gentle movement, or simply noticing where tension lives without trying to fix it. These signals tell the nervous system that the present moment is not dangerous. Over time, the body begins to release its grip on constant readiness. This chapter invites you to understand that calm is built from the ground up, starting with the body's sense of safety. You do not need to force relaxation or reach a perfect state of peace. As the body slowly learns that it is allowed to rest, the mind will follow, and calm will begin to feel possible again. When the body has stayed in survival mode for a long time, it forgets how to recognize calm as something natural and allowed, even when life becomes quieter on the outside. You may find yourself resting physically, but feeling internally alert, as if your system is waiting for something to go wrong at any moment. Calm feels unreachable because the body has not yet learned that the present moment is different from the past. This constant readiness is often shaped by repeated stress, emotional pressure, or long periods of responsibility where there was no space to slow down safely. The body adapts by staying prepared, holding energy in the muscles, and keeping the breath shallow, believing this will help you cope. Calm cannot settle while the body believes that vigilance is necessary for survival. Many people misinterpret this state as anxiety or weakness, without realizing it is actually a sign of a highly adaptive nervous system that learned to protect you. The problem is not that your body reacts. The problem is that it never gets the signal to stop reacting. Calm begins when the body experiences safety not just once, but repeatedly, without interruption. You might notice that even during rest, your heart rate stays elevated, your breathing feels restricted, or your sleep remains light and easily disturbed. These are signs that the nervous system does not yet trust rest, because rest has not felt safe in the past. Calm requires trust, and trust is built slowly through consistent, gentle experiences. Trying to override these signals with willpower or discipline often creates more tension, because the body does not respond to force in the way the mind expects it to. The body listens to rhythm, softness, and repetition, not commands or pressure. Calm grows when the body feels invited into rest, not pushed into it. Simple practices repeated over time, such as slower breathing, relaxed movement, or moments of stillness without expectation, begin to teach the nervous system a new pattern. Each small signal of safety weakens the habit of constant alertness. Calm returns gradually as the body learns that it no longer needs to stay prepared all the time. As this chapter continues, remember that your body is not broken or against you. It has only learned what it needed to survive. When you meet it with patience instead of frustration, its grip slowly softens. Calm will not arrive suddenly, but it will grow quietly as the body begins to feel safe again, moment by moment. Chapter 5. Why control makes calm harder. When calm feels impossible, many people instinctively respond by tightening control over their thoughts, emotions, routines, and surroundings, believing that more discipline and structure will finally create inner peace. At first, this approach can feel reassuring because control gives the illusion of order in a world that feels emotionally unpredictable and mentally overwhelming. Over time, however, this constant need to manage everything quietly increases tension and pushes calm even further away. Control keeps the mind locked in a state of continuous monitoring, checking reactions, correcting feelings, and scanning for what might go wrong next. This inner surveillance never truly shuts off, even during moments meant for rest, because the system believes vigilance equals safety. Calm cannot grow in an environment where watchfulness is mistaken for stability and peace. You may notice that the more perfectly you try to manage your emotions and behavior, the more tired, irritable, and internally frustrated you begin to feel. This happens because control always requires effort, and effort keeps the nervous system activated rather than allowing it to soften. Calm is not created through effortful regulation. It emerges when the system no longer feels required to perform. Many people fear that loosening control will lead to emotional collapse, loss of direction, or becoming careless and unproductive. In reality, what often follows is not chaos, but a sense of relief, as the inner system realizes it does not have to hold everything together alone. Calm appears not when life is perfectly managed, but when trust slowly replaces constant inner supervision. Control also creates emotional distance, because feelings are treated as problems to fix or reactions to suppress, instead of experiences to understand and move through. This emotional resistance adds another layer of tension as unprocessed feelings continue to demand attention beneath the surface. Calm requires connection and allowance within your inner world, not dominance or force. Letting go of control does not mean giving up responsibility or becoming passive toward life. It means allowing flexibility where rigidity once ruled. Flexibility allows the mind to adapt without panic and gives the body permission to soften without fear of losing balance. Calm grows in spaces where adjustment is allowed without self-criticism or punishment. As this chapter continues, you are gently invited to notice where control has truly protected you and where it has quietly been costing you peace and energy. You do not need to release all control at once. Even small moments of easing your grip can change how the system responds. Calm begins to return when you realize that safety does not require holding everything so tightly all the time. When control becomes a long-term habit, the mind starts measuring safety through performance, believing that calm will arrive only after everything is handled correctly, efficiently, and without any visible mistakes. This belief quietly creates a moving target, because life never stays organized for long, and new uncertainties always replace the old ones. Calm keeps getting postponed, waiting for a perfect moment that never truly arrives. You may notice that even when things go well, the sense of relief feels short-lived, because the mind immediately shifts its focus to the next thing that must be managed, improved, or prevented. This constant forward pressure keeps the nervous system activated, unable to fully register success or rest. Calm cannot settle when satisfaction is instantly replaced by another demand for control. Over time, control often turns inward, becoming strict self-discipline where you closely monitor your thoughts, emotions, and reactions with very little compassion. Any emotional response that feels messy, slow, or unexpected is judged as a failure to cope properly. Calm fades in inner environments where self-criticism replaces understanding and patience. The body responds to this internal pressure by staying tense, because control signals that something could go wrong at any moment. Muscles remain slightly contracted, breathing becomes shallow, and rest feels incomplete even during sleep or quiet moments. Calm requires the body to feel allowed to soften, not instructed to stay prepared. You might also notice that control limits emotional expression, making you cautious about fully feeling joy, sadness, or relief in case it disrupts stability. This emotional restraint creates distance from yourself, even when life appears stable on the surface. Calm cannot fully exist where emotions are constantly filtered and restrained. Learning to ease control begins with awareness, noticing how often you tighten internally without any real danger present. Small acts of letting things be slightly unfinished, slightly uncertain, or slightly imperfect gently teach the nervous system that safety does not disappear when control loosens. Calm grows through lived experience, not mental reassurance. Trust develops slowly, especially if control once protected you during difficult or unpredictable times. There is no need to force surrender or suddenly change your habits. Calm strengthens each time you allow life to move without constant correction and discover that you are still safe. As this chapter closes, remember that control itself is not the enemy. It is simply a strategy that has been used beyond its usefulness. You can keep what truly supports you and release what silently exhausts you. Calm begins to feel possible again when you realize that safety does not depend on holding everything together alone. Chapter 6. The Fear of Letting Go. Letting go often sounds peaceful in theory, yet in practice it can feel deeply uncomfortable because the mind links release with loss, danger, or emotional exposure that once felt overwhelming. You may feel that if you stop holding everything together, something important will fall apart, or you will not be able to cope when challenges arise. Calm feels risky when control has been your main source of safety for a long time. This fear does not come from weakness or lack of insight. It comes from lived experience, especially if there were periods in your life when letting go was followed by pain, instability, or disappointment. The mind learns from these moments and builds protective habits to prevent the same outcomes from repeating. Calm struggles to return when protection becomes permanent instead of situational and flexible. You might notice that even the idea of slowing down or resting creates unease, as if stillness will allow difficult thoughts or emotions to catch up with you all at once. This anticipation alone is enough to keep the nervous system alert, even when nothing threatening is actually happening. Calm cannot settle while the mind is bracing for an imagined collapse. Many people confuse letting go with giving up, believing that release means losing discipline, motivation, or responsibility toward life. In reality, letting go is not abandonment. It is a shift from force to trust, from tension to allowance, and from constant effort to natural response. Calm grows when effort is gradually replaced with confidence in your ability to respond when needed. The fear of letting go often shows up in relationships as well, where emotional openness feels unsafe because it removes inner armor built for protection. Staying guarded may feel secure on the surface, but it keeps the system in a state of readiness that prevents true rest. Calm requires enough safety to soften without constantly defending yourself. Learning to let go begins in small, manageable moments, rather than through dramatic change or emotional exposure. Allowing yourself to pause before reacting, to not fix every feeling, or to delay a response, retrains the nervous system gently. Calm builds through these quiet experiences of release that end without harm. It is also important to recognize that letting go does not mean you will lose control forever. It means you are choosing when control is truly necessary. This discernment reduces inner tension and restores balance between effort and ease. Calm grows when control becomes a choice instead of a reflex. As this chapter continues, remember that letting go is not about trusting the world blindly. It is about trusting yourself to handle what arises without constant inner strain. You do not need to release everything at once or prove anything to yourself. Calm will return slowly as you discover, step by step, that safety can exist even when you are not holding so tightly. When control begins to loosen, the mind often reacts by creating doubt, replaying memories of past instability or emotional pain, as if warning you that relaxing might invite the same chaos again. These thoughts are not signs that you are failing or moving backward. They are protective reflexes shaped by experience. Calm feels unfamiliar at this stage because your system is adjusting to a rhythm it did not rely on for survival before. You may feel a quiet inner conflict where one part of you deeply wants peace, rest and softness, while another part stays uneasy, questioning whether calm can truly be trusted. Silence may feel uncomfortable, and rest may feel strangely alert, because your mind is still learning that pressure is no longer required. Calm cannot fully arrive until this fear is met with understanding instead of resistance. Often, the fear of letting go is tied to identity, where being in control became proof that you are responsible, strong, and capable. Releasing control can feel like losing structure or purpose, even when that structure has been quietly exhausting you for years. Calm grows when you begin to separate your worth from constant effort and self-management. The nervous system does not change through logic or reassurance. It changes through repeated experience. Each time you allow yourself to pause, slow down, or soften and nothing harmful happens, a new message of safety is recorded inside you. Calm is not a sudden realization. It is a pattern learned slowly through these moments. As control eases, emotions that were previously held back may begin to surface, not to overwhelm you, but to complete unfinished inner processes. These emotions might feel unfamiliar, delayed, or even confusing, yet they are signs of release rather than regression. Calm often follows emotional honesty, not emotional avoidance or suppression. It is important to move gently through this phase because forcing yourself to let go can recreate the same inner pressure you are trying to escape. Letting go is not something you do once. It is a permission you give yourself repeatedly, moment by moment. Calm responds to patience, softness, and consistency, not urgency. You may also notice moments where calm appears briefly and then fades again, which can feel discouraging if you expect instant stability. These fluctuations are natural because the system is learning something new and unfamiliar. Calm strengthens over time as the mind learns that peace does not lead to danger. As this chapter continues, remember that fear does not mean you are unsafe. It means something inside you is adapting. You are not becoming careless or weak by loosening your grip. You are expanding your capacity to feel safe without constant tension. Calm will continue to grow as letting go becomes associated with relief, stability, and trust rather than threat. Chapter 7. Learning to sit with discomfort. When calm has been absent for a long time, even mild discomfort can feel threatening, because the mind has learned to react quickly rather than stay present. You may notice an urge to distract yourself, fix the feeling, or move away from it as soon as unease appears. Calm feels impossible when discomfort is treated as something that must be escaped immediately. Discomfort is not always a signal that something is wrong. It is often a sign that something unfamiliar is happening inside you. As you begin to slow down and release control, sensations, emotions, and thoughts that were previously pushed aside start to come into awareness. Calm grows when you learn to stay with these experiences without rushing them away. Many people fear that sitting with discomfort will make it grow stronger or last forever, but most discomfort changes when it is allowed instead of resisted. Resistance tightens the system, while gentle attention allows movement and release. Calm does not come from comfort alone. It comes from knowing you can remain present even when things feel uneasy. You might notice discomfort showing up as restlessness, emotional heaviness, or a vague sense of unease without a clear cause. These experiences can feel confusing, especially if you are used to understanding and solving everything quickly. Calm requires tolerance for not knowing and not fixing right away. Learning to sit with discomfort does not mean forcing yourself to endure pain or ignore your limits. It means allowing space for what is already present without adding fear, judgment, or urgency on top of it. Calm develops when the nervous system learns that discomfort can exist without becoming overwhelming. At first, staying present may feel awkward or unstable because your system is used to movement and distraction. With time, these moments of presence become more familiar, and discomfort loses its power to control your reactions. Calm begins to feel more accessible as tolerance increases. This chapter invites you to see discomfort not as an enemy, but as a temporary state that does not define you or predict the future. You are not required to enjoy discomfort or understand it completely. Calm will continue to grow as you learn, slowly and patiently, that you can stay present without needing to escape yourself. As you practice staying with discomfort, you may begin to notice how quickly the mind tries to label, explain, or judge what you are feeling, as if naming it will make it disappear faster. This mental activity is another form of control, an attempt to manage discomfort instead of allowing it to move and resolve naturally. Calm grows when observation gently replaces interpretation and urgency slowly softens into patience. Discomfort often comes in waves, rising and falling when it is given space, even though the mind may predict that it will stay forever or grow unbearable. When you remain present long enough, the nervous system learns through experience that these sensations are temporary and survivable. Calm begins to emerge from this realization, not because discomfort vanishes, but because fear around it weakens. You might notice subtle shifts while sitting with discomfort, such as changes in breathing, warmth spreading through the body, or emotions quietly transforming into something softer. These shifts do not require effort or analysis. They happen naturally when resistance loosens. Calm appears quietly in these moments, often without announcement or dramatic relief. Many people struggle here because they expect calm to feel pleasant or soothing immediately, not realizing that calm often arrives first as neutrality. Neutrality can feel empty or strange if your inner world has been intense for a long time. Calm develops as you learn to accept this quieter state without demanding comfort or certainty from it. It is also common to judge yourself during this process, believing you are not doing it correctly or that discomfort should already be gone. These judgments recreate pressure and pull you back into control mode, interrupting the natural settling process. Calm strengthens when you allow the experience to unfold without constantly measuring your progress. Over time, sitting with discomfort builds inner stability because you stop reacting automatically to every sensation, thought, or emotional shift. This stability creates a gentle space between what you feel and how you respond. Calm grows in that space, slowly replacing reactivity with awareness and choice. As this chapter deepens, you may realize that discomfort itself was never the real problem, but the fear and resistance built around it. When that fear softens, discomfort loses much of its power. Calm continues to grow as you learn, through direct experience, that you can stay present without being overwhelmed. Remember that learning to sit with discomfort is not about becoming emotionally distant or detached from life. It is about developing trust in your ability to remain present with yourself, even when things feel uncertain. Calm will continue to deepen as this trust becomes part of how you relate to your inner world. Chapter 8. When calm begins to return. As you spend more time allowing emotions, easing control, and staying present with discomfort, you may start to notice subtle moments where calm appears on its own. These moments may be brief and easy to miss, arriving as a quiet pause, a softer breath, or a sense of inner space that feels unfamiliar. Calm returns gently, not as a dramatic shift, but as a gradual easing of inner tension. At first, calm may feel unstable, appearing for a short time and then fading again, which can create doubt about whether real change is happening. This fluctuation is natural because your system is learning a new pattern after a long period of tension. Calm strengthens not by staying constantly present, but by returning again and again after it fades. You might also notice that calm does not remove challenges or difficult emotions, but it changes how you experience them. Problems may still exist, yet they no longer feel as overwhelming or urgent as before. Calm creates space around experience, allowing you to respond rather than react automatically. As calm begins to return, the body often signals this shift before the mind fully recognizes it, through deeper breathing, relaxed muscles, or improved sleep. These physical changes are signs that the nervous system is beginning to trust safety again. Calm is built from these embodied experiences, not from mental reassurance alone. It is important not to chase calm or try to hold on to it tightly when it appears, because grasping can recreate pressure and tension. Calm grows when it is allowed to come and go without judgment or expectation. The more you allow it, the more familiar and stable it becomes. Some people fear that calm will make them passive or less motivated, but true calm often brings clarity rather than dullness. With less inner noise, you may find it easier to focus, make decisions, and engage with life more fully. Calm supports action instead of replacing it. This chapter invites you to trust the process, even when progress feels slow or uneven. Calm is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is a state that grows through ongoing relationship with yourself. As you continue, you will discover that calm has been returning all along, quietly and patiently, as you learn to make space for it. As calm becomes more familiar, you may notice that your reactions slow down slightly, creating a small but meaningful space between what happens around you and how you respond internally. This space may feel subtle and almost invisible, yet it changes everything because it allows choice where there was once only automatic reaction and emotional reflex. Calm grows stronger each time you pause, without forcing yourself to decide, fix, or explain anything immediately. You might begin to realize that situations which once felt overwhelming now feel more manageable, not because they became easier, but because your inner response has softened. The mind no longer jumps straight into urgency, and the body no longer braces as intensely as it once did, even under pressure. Calm reshapes experience by reducing inner resistance, not by removing difficulty or responsibility from life. There can be moments where calm feels unfamiliar, or even slightly uncomfortable, especially if you have lived in tension and alertness for a long time. Your system may question whether this ease is temporary, undeserved, or unsafe to trust. Calm deepens as you allow yourself to stay with this unfamiliar ease without analyzing it or pushing it away. As calm returns, your attention may naturally shift towards simpler experiences, such as noticing your breathing, the weight of your body, or the quiet details of your surroundings. These moments are not signs of disengagement or withdrawal. They are signs of reconnection with the present moment. Calm brings you back into life rather than pulling you away from it. You may also notice that your inner dialogue becomes kinder and less demanding, replacing pressure with understanding and self-respect. This softer inner tone reduces self-created stress and allows calm to stabilize more naturally. Calm grows when the mind no longer treats itself as a problem that needs constant correction. It is important to remember that calm does not eliminate emotional depth or intensity. It simply allows emotions to move without overwhelming the system. You may still feel sadness, frustration, or uncertainty, but these feelings pass more naturally without turning into inner conflict. calm supports emotional flow instead of emotional suppression or avoidance. As this chapter unfolds further, allow yourself to recognize these changes without trying to measure progress or hold on to specific states. Calm does not need to be protected, proven, or maintained through effort. It strengthens quietly as you live with slightly more presence, patience, and trust in your ability to respond to life as it comes. Chapter 9. Living without constant inattention. As calm becomes more present in your daily life, you may slowly begin to realize how much energy was once spent holding yourself together internally, managing reactions, and staying mentally prepared at all times. Without this constant inner tension, simple tasks begin to feel lighter, and your mind feels less crowded even on busy days. Calm does not add something new to your life. It removes what was quietly exhausting you for a long time. Living without constant tension does not mean life suddenly becomes easy or free of difficulty. It means challenges no longer take over your entire inner world. Stressful situations still arise, but they move through you instead of settling inside and lingering for days. Calm allows experiences to pass without turning them into permanent emotional weight. You might notice that your body now recovers more quickly after stress, releasing tension instead of holding it long after the moment has passed. Muscles soften faster, breathing deepens more naturally, and rest begins to feel more restorative. Calm strengthens each time your nervous system returns to balance without needing effort or control. Without constant inner pressure, your relationships may also begin to change in subtle but meaningful ways. You may listen with more presence, react with less defensiveness, and feel less need to protect yourself emotionally. Calm creates space for connection because safety no longer depends on staying guarded. There may still be moments when old tension returns, especially during difficult days, unexpected challenges, or emotional triggers from the past. These moments do not mean you are going backward. They simply show how deeply those patterns were learned. Calm deepens when you meet these moments with patience instead of self-criticism. Living with less tension also changes your relationship with time, easing the constant sense of urgency that once followed you everywhere. You may still move quickly when needed, but internally you feel less rushed and more grounded. Calm allows you to respond to life at the pace of the present moment rather than the pace of fear. You may begin to trust yourself more, not because you have control over everything, but because you know you can handle what arises without collapsing or tightening inside. This trust reduces the need for constant vigilance and planning. Calm grows stronger as confidence replaces inner pressure. As this chapter continues, remember that calm is not a permanent state you must hold on to perfectly. It is a flexible way of relating to yourself with less resistance. You are not required to feel calm all the time to live well or make progress. Calm continues to grow naturally as inner tension loosens and presence becomes your quieter, steadier default. As inner tension continues to loosen, you may notice a steadier sense of balance that does not depend on everything going your way or staying under control. Even on difficult days, there is a quiet feeling that you are no longer fighting yourself from the inside, and this alone reduces deep exhaustion. Calm lives in cooperation with yourself, not in perfect outcomes. You may begin to experience emotions more cleanly, feeling sadness without panic, frustration without collapse, and uncertainty without immediately preparing for the worst. These emotions move through you with less resistance because they no longer meet a wall of tension inside. Calm allows emotions to exist without turning them into inner battles. Daily decisions can start to feel lighter because you are no longer scanning constantly for the safest or most perfect choice. You trust your ability to adjust and respond if something does not go as planned. Calm grows when flexibility replaces the need to control every outcome in advance. Your body may begin to communicate more clearly, signaling when you need rest, movement, or quiet without escalating into pain or burnout. When tension is lower, these signals are easier to notice and respect. Calm supports a healthier dialogue between your body and your awareness. There may be moments when silence no longer feels threatening and stillness no longer feels like wasted time. At first, this quiet can feel unfamiliar, especially if your system was used to constant urgency. Calm slowly fills this space, turning emptiness into openness rather than discomfort. Living without constant inner tension allows moments of joy or contentment to be felt more fully, without immediately questioning them or waiting for something to go wrong. Small pleasures stand out again, not because life changed, but because inner noise softened. Calm makes room for these experiences naturally. This way of living does not remove responsibility or ambition. It removes the unnecessary strain surrounding them. You can still work toward meaningful goals without carrying constant pressure inside. Calm supports steady effort without burning you out. As this chapter nears its close, remember that living with less inner tension is not a final destination, but a way of relating to yourself again and again. Some days will feel lighter, others heavier, and both are part of being human. Calm continues to deepen each time you choose not to fight yourself and allow life to move through you with less resistance. Chapter 10. Calm as a way of living. As calm becomes more stable within you, it stops feeling like something you visit occasionally and starts feeling like a way you move through life. This does not mean you are calm all the time. It means calm becomes the place you return to after disruption. Calm turns into a baseline, not a fragile state that disappears at the first sign of difficulty. You may notice that challenges no longer feel personal in the same way they once did, even when they are serious or emotionally charged. Instead of immediately blaming yourself or feeling overwhelmed, there is a pause where perspective enters naturally. Calm allows you to meet life without adding unnecessary inner conflict to what is already happening. Living calmly does not mean withdrawing from ambition, responsibility, or effort. It means engaging with them without constant internal pressure. You still care, plan, and act, but without the sense that everything is urgent or threatening. Calm supports sustainable effort rather than short bursts driven by anxiety. You might also find that your reactions feel more proportionate, matching the situation instead of being amplified by old patterns of fear or tension. This balance creates trust in yourself because you see that you can handle difficulties without losing stability. Calm grows stronger each time you respond rather than react. Over time, calm begins to influence how you relate to others, creating more space for listening, understanding, and patience. You may feel less defensive and less compelled to prove yourself in conversations or conflicts. Calm allows connection without constant self-protection. There can still be moments when stress pulls you back into old habits, especially during uncertainty or emotional strain. These moments are not failures. They are reminders of how far you have come and what your system learned to survive. Calm deepens when you meet these moments with awareness instead of frustration. As this chapter opens, remember that calm is not a personality trait or a fixed destination. It is a practice woven into daily life. You do not need to perfect it or maintain it constantly. Calm continues to grow as you choose presence, flexibility, and self-trust over fear and inner resistance. As this audiobook comes to a close, it is important to understand that calm is not something you complete or master once. It is something you return to again and again throughout your life. Calm lives in how you respond to moments, how you speak to yourself during difficulty, and how you allow experiences to pass without turning them into inner struggles. It becomes less about avoiding stress and more about not abandoning yourself when stress appears. You may notice that calm now feels quieter and more ordinary than you once imagined, no longer dramatic or intense, but steady and supportive in the background of your life. This kind of calm does not demand attention or recognition. It simply creates space for clarity, balance, and presence. Calm shows up in pauses, in softer reactions, and in the ability to breathe through moments without losing yourself. Life will continue to bring uncertainty, pressure, and emotional challenges, and calm does not promise protection from these experiences. What calm offers is a way to meet them without constant inner resistance, panic, or self-criticism. Calm allows difficulty to exist without letting it define who you are or how safe you feel inside. There will still be days when old patterns return, when tension rises quickly and peace feels distant or unreachable again. These days do not erase your growth or mean something has gone wrong. They are reminders that being human includes fluctuation and learning. Calm deepens not when these moments disappear, but when you meet them with patience instead of judgment. Over time, you may realize that calm has changed how you see yourself, not as someone who must always cope perfectly, but as someone who can stay present through imperfection. This shift creates self-trust, and self-trust becomes one of the strongest foundations of lasting calm. When you trust yourself, the need for constant control begins to soften naturally. Calm also changes how you relate to the world around you, allowing you to engage fully without being consumed by outcomes or expectations. You can care deeply, work meaningfully, and love honestly without carrying constant inner pressure. Calm supports a life that feels lived with awareness rather than endured with tension. As you carry these reflections forward, remember that calm is not something you force, chase, or hold tightly. It grows when you give yourself permission to feel honestly, pause when needed, and respond with awareness instead of fear. Calm remains available to you, not as a destination you reach once, but as a way of being you can return to, again and again, whenever life feels heavy.